Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's your boy Nitsa coming back with another bullseye of a video here today on the channel. I wanted to talk about Neve, the Transformers. Why is it such a timeless, type of sound that people love? Why do pros stay be on this Neve 1073, this Neve, this, that? I want to look at why the Neve is such a classic thing. Why does it work? So let's jump into it right away. If y'all do have any more questions or comments for any type of videos y'all want to see down below, go ahead and drop it. I'm more than happy to get to it. So the very first thing that we got to understand with the Neve preamp, it's Rupert Neve is one of his very first designs, one of his babies. It's crazy. Rupert Neve actually said that like his whole career, he made the Neve in the beginning, right? It was one of his first things. Like his whole career, he was always trying to beat the Neve, but he could never really beat it because it was just his baby, He just made it. It was like one of those first type of, perfect channel strips that gave you that nice creamy tone, and everything was so well balanced. So let's look at this from a perspective of what's inside of a Neve. Like what's the parts inside of the Ferrari that make everybody want to get that Ferrari? So let's look at the Neve 1073 LB, which is the 500 series version of the preamp. So this one is made by AMS Neve. So Neve, he had about like 3 companies. He had AMS Neve, which was the first one. That he had a little, he went bankrupt, quote unquote. That's what they said. Then he had to sign a contract where he said he wouldn't make another, console for like 10 years. Then after that, he went on to make Focusrite, and then, whoop-de-whoop with Focusrite. Then after that, he went ahead and had Rupert Neve Design. So this is his original company, AMS Neve, and, they have the Neve 1073 LB, which you could put inside a 500 series chassis. This is a pretty good preamp. A lot of people, this is very ergonomic. So that's the good thing about this one here. So let's look at the, what's inside of a Neve, what's making it go. So pretty much you have something which is like discrete components, class A, and essentially you have this big thing right here. You see that big thing right there? That's what gives the Neve a lot of its weight. It's called a transformer. So that's the main idea about my video today. Transformers. All right. So then after that, the Neve, the transformer gives it the weight. It gives it the beef. But then after that, you have the transistors, which I think they're covered up right here, but they will probably be somewhere over here on that top. And that's what gives it the Neve. It's kind of like saturation in the top end. So, the transformer gives it a warming characteristic, a little bump in the lows and a little bit kind of smoothing of the highs. But then the transistor kind of gives it that buzz. So it's a very well balanced type of thing. And with the Neve 1073 too, it has a dual transistor, so one on the input, the other one on the output bit. So pretty much it worked like a seesaw. So if you push the volume a lot into the the circuit path, pretty much it's like a seesaw. One side gonna go up, the other one gonna go down. So pretty much it's just a well balanced type of thing that is really smooth tonally, but if you push it really hard, you could get some distortion. So let's look at another type of Neve that I love to use. So shout out to my boy, I think his name is Black Panther. He dropped a comment on my video last night. Y'all, if y'all got any questions, drop it down below. I'm happy to get to it. But this is the chain that I was talking about. I love using the Neve preamp in a tracking stage for universal audio console. And you got to understand too, I think this one is different Neves got like different transformers and all that, but I think this one has the Marinara transformer. I'm not sure if it's the Marinara, but the original one got the Carnhill transformer. So that like when you trying to buy a Neve, a real Neve, you got to look into that stuff too, cause that it might make a little difference too. So this is the chain that I was talking about. I love to use the Neve, and I love to push it the sweet spot, usually probably around 35 to 40. But then after that, I love to put it into something like the distressor. So this was the chain that I was talking about last night. Shout out to my boy Black Panther. So pretty much this is literally the chain that I'm talking into right now, the distressor optical mode with the Neve pushing into that bit, and it really just sounds so smooth. I just love how the Neve, it really just gives this type of really creaminess, this smoothness, and that's coming from the parts, which is the transformer as well as the transistors. The transistors, if you overdrive them, you can get some very interesting tonal characteristics. So that was a little chain right there, and I've been tracking a lot with that chain, and it's really good. The Neve is a familiar sound. So as an engineer, sometimes you might want to give, a chain that is familiar to the person so they can feel good about themselves. It's like when you go into a party, but you don't see nobody, you're really going to be like, you're not really going to get into it. But if you have a sound that's kind of familiar and you're recording an artist and they hear like a little Neve preamp, maybe a little distressor, something that's kind of already familiar, it's going to get them in a vibe to where they can open up. Kind of like if you go to a party, you see your cousin and them, you see people you're going to be like, yo, what it is? Like, you're going to be vibing with them. Cool. Let's jump into a mixing perspective. So the Neve is amazing for tracking, but now we're going to jump into a mixing perspective. Let's listen to this music that I got here right now. Let's go.
Never seen him wear a chain, beat the case, I ain't cry, but I felt pain, either way, came home home serving H, ain't cool out the way. I was in a crowded space, stepping hard while on the way. Anticipating stress, got me feeling aggravated. I'ma thug it raw forever, no matter what the situation, no matter what. It don't matter, keep a ratchet by my bladder. Most these niggas fully cowed, I'm fully loaded. See you after, I'ma chase it with some ice. Take a sip and spit some lines. I done crossed a couple so lately.
All right, cool. So the very first thing that I was hearing when I was making this song is I heard that the 2-track beat needed a little bit of juice. So I used True Iron, which is a transformer model plugin. So this one gives you a bunch of different types of voicing. This is kind of like my preset. I like to juice up my 2-track beat. Sometimes when you download a 2-track beat and you convert that bit, you know, from YouTube and all that stuff, you know, it happens where you kind of do lose a little bit of that girth, kind of like how you was hearing it. So I use the transformer, the True Iron Kazarog to bring it in there. So that's something I love to use. And you also get the ability to distort a little bit, but this is the preset I kind of always use. Sometimes I might even just use this type of voicing, but you know, a lot of things have transformers in it, kind of like 1176 has a transformer in it. LA3A, LA2A, a lot of the amazing parts of the you know, audio gear, you know, they use transformers. So that's what I'm trying to help y'all understand. And then after that, you know, with this song, I was thinking I needed contrast. So the beat is dark. So I realized that I couldn't make his vocal too, you know, blending in with the beat. I wanted it to be kind of like a shining star. So the beat, definitely when you hear that, you think about nighttime. Dun, 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 dun. You think of space. So I wanted to make his vocal like a star. So how did I do that? I thought of something like distortion, a transistor, which could give me a little bit of buzz, you know, kind of like a star. You know, the sun is something that is hot, but it's crispy as well. You know, if you literally go to the sun, you probably hear stuff popping and boiling. So you, as an engineer, you got to use words, you got to use things, images in your head to mix a song, and, you know, use that direction. And, you know, as you're going through the mix, you like, do it really sound like how I heard it in my head? So that's the most important thing. Next thing after that, let's look at what we used. I used this called the Dirt. My Dirt Bus pretty much is distortion, right? And I wanted to dirty up his vocal a little bit. So I used the Neve, and with the Neve, let's understand the Neve preamp that you have two options, which is the mic and the line. So the only difference between the mic and the line is kind of like the level of it. So mic is when you're recording, you're tracking, you have a real microphone. Microphones need a little bit more gain, a little bit more dB to get powered up. You know, they need a little bit more diesel in the engine to get revved up. And then you have the line level, which is the same thing. It's just padded down by 30 dB. So this line level is a lot better for mixing situations. A lot of Neve preamps nowadays, they do have the difference between a mic and line, just in case if you want to have like a guitar, you want to go in line amp or high Z or something like that. Or, you know, mic is just like if you're actually powering a mic and you're literally recording the actual performance with a microphone. So that's very beautiful about a Neve. And I think a Neve is great for something like a Shure SM7B, something else, you know, that requires a lot of gain, those type of microphones. And yeah, let's listen to what I did. You know, I put it on mic. This is a trick I got from Vance Powell. I pushed it to about 35 and I blended it in, you know, kind of like a parallel distortion. So let's listen to how it actually gave the vocal, the image I heard in my head, which is a shining star, a little bit of crispiness, a little bit of buzziness to help it stand out in the beat. Let's listen.
The case, I ain't cry, but I felt pain either way. Came home 7H, ain't cool out the way. I was in a crowded space, stepping hard while on the way. Anticipating stress, got me feeling aggravated. I'ma thug it raw forever, no matter what the situation, no matter what. It don't matter, keep a ratchet by my bladder. Most these niggas fully cowed, I'm fully loaded. See you after, I'ma chase it with some ice. Take a sip and spit some lines. I done crossed a couple so lately, I've been praying twice. Beat the case, I ain't cry, but I felt pain either way. Came home 7H, ain't cool out the way. I was in a crowded space, stepping hard while on the way. Anticipating stress, got me feeling aggravated. I'ma thug it raw forever, no matter what the situation, no matter what. It don't matter, keep a ratchet by my bladder. Most these niggas fully cowed, I'm fully loaded. See you after, I'ma chase it with some ice.
So it actually sounds like I kind of did something like an EQ boost, and that's what I always try to be telling y'all, you know, boosting EQ on a vocal. I try to stay away from that because I want it to be, I want to keep the original type of character. You know, the human being already gave me a vocal, so I don't want to do anything to make it sound less human by putting too much processing or boosting EQ. You know, the whole boosting EQ situation, it's kind of like a whole car dealership, you know, if you want to get one car, they're gonna try to show you all the cars. So that's what boosting EQ is like, you know. If you boost up top, you're gonna be boosting like the air of the room and all that stuff. And if you don't have a good room, then you might boost it, or you have a dull plastic microphone, there might not be anything there. So sometimes you want to use something like a Neve and you parallel that bit and you blend it back in, you feel me? And they gonna give you that little sparkle, that little sheen, because that's the transistors, that's the buzzing, you feel me, from the transistors. And essentially what you have here with the transistors, it kind of does like a form of soft clipping. So I can't really visualize it too much, because in a situation like this, I did track with a little bit of compression. But usually when you have a digital waveform, it might be a little bit too precise. It's kind of like when you go to the barber, right, and you getting a haircut and you tell them, yo, let me get a fade real quick, I'm trying to fade it up, you feel me? Like when they do a fade, they don't cut off the whole hair, they blend it in, you know, like it's kind of like a soft type of texture to it. So everybody can relate to that. And that's what happening to your audio waveform when you do something like this technique, or you use something like a Neve preamp. There's kind of like a soft saturation, a soft clipping from the transistors, quote unquote. The buzzing is a word that we like to use, that it's kind of doing. So it's kind of smoothing out your vocal a little bit as well in a situation like that, but we used it in parallel. All right, so then the next thing after that I love to use the Neve 1073 for is something like P42. So this type of plugin is pretty interesting to me because it's coming from a different type of transformer. So that's back onto the transformers, and it's modeling the vintage triad, you know, 1968 whoop-de-whoop Motown transformer. That's what really caught my attention, Motown. If you ever listen to Motown back in the day, they bass lines be imaging so well. Like if you listen to it on the phone, like try to listen to Marvin Gaye or any Motown type of music. And the reason why the bass and stuff like that, you can just hear it so well in even a throwback type of song like that, is because they had so much saturation. The tape was giving them saturation, the preamp, even the microphone, maybe it was like tube, it was giving them saturation. So the saturation is a very important thing because it really just helps everything just get a tonal identity. Like, hey, you could hear, okay, like this is where the bass is at. It's kind of like a classroom when they taking attendance, the bass like, hey, I'm here, the guitar like, I'm here, yo, and then the vocal like, yo, I'm here. So it's kind of like a situation like that. That's why I like to mix different saturators, but sometimes you could get carried away with it. But you know, you always want to really just use your ear. Is it the sound you hear in your head? You feel me? So this is the vintage 1968 Motown transformer. Very interesting stuff right here. So that's what gave it a lot of juice, you know, especially with the bass lines. Go listen to that music, you know, Motown. And then that brings us right back to something like the P42, which is modeling that same type of transformer. So the UAD Neve, it got its own little sound. When it comes to the UAD Neve, you got to also think about it too. Both of the 1073 UAD and the 1084, I think, you know, those also have the EQ circuit in it. So they might sound a little bit from just the raw Neve preamp, but the 1073 and the 1084, they both got the same preamp. So, you know, just also think about that as well. They have the same preamp, but different EQ circuits, so they might sound a little bit different. So the P42, you know, this one is pretty good right here. I like to use it on multiple tracks, you know, sometimes kind of like on a summing type of situation. But here I opened it up in Studio Rack and I turned it into like a multi-band saturator. So that's another great thing that Studio Rack do. You could turn that bit into a multi-band saturator. So here I'm using it on my All Effects bus. These two bands right here are pretty moderate. They're just regular saturation. But then when I come over here to my top end, what I did is I cranked a bunch of saturation, and what that does is that's adding a little bit more type of buzz or harmonic content to the overtones, like the really top tippity top of that bit. You feel me? So when you do something like that, it just makes the reverb and the effects a lot more audible. It kind of quote unquote adds air a little bit, because now your ear could kind of identify like, okay, now I hear a little bit of that, you know, that little tippity top of the reverb. Now I kind of got a little paint on it. So, you know, if the reverb is invisible, you throw a bucket of paint on that bit, now you're gonna see where it's walking around. So let me bring it in and out real quick for you.
No matter what, it don't matter, keep a ratchet by my bladder. Most these niggas fully cowed, I'm fully loaded, see you after. I'm a chaser with some ice, take a sip and spit some lines. I done crossed a couple, so lately I've been praying twice. I hit the bottom, I had nothing but ambition. Make some decisions, broke my heart, but I'm so driven. I was blind, but even then I had vision. No competition, I see packs, I want commission. I love that can't nobody take this shit away from me, not even me. No matter what, I come on top, that's destiny. That's mythology, I'm a prodigy. I'm working till I'm drained completely, I must honor me. Ain't nobody get it done more than I. Move that dope so fast.
So yeah, it's a situation like that. You know, when I use the multiband, I try to always make sure it's the same thing, the same processing all across the board. But you heard that, you know, that pushing that transformer really hard was able to help our ear listen to, like, oh yo, there's some air up there, there's the reverb. Now you hear a little bit more dimension. And I like doing the method like this, multiband, because, you know, now it creates that dimension where the reverb and the beat don't sound like the reverb on his vocals. So that's the type of sound I was going for on this song, which I like a lot because it was a different sound. It wasn't like a mainstream wannabe mainstream sound. It was more a situation where it's like, yo, I want to create a new texture because the beat is already smooth. So I want a little contrast. I want them to, yeah, they're going to appreciate what smooth is when I give them something kind of grainy and a little bit you feel me? They're going to appreciate that bit. So last thing I just want to say too is sometimes when people send me vocals that I did not record, I did not track, I might even create, you know, I might mimic the chain that I have for the UAD. So I'll just pull it up in a situation like this. Like, let's say they sent me an audio track. I'll put the Neve, I'll do something like this. I'll take the Neve preamp, I'll pull it up. And then I'll use something like what, the distressor, or I'll use something like, especially the CL1B, you feel me? And I'll make sure I put this one on line level or whatever like that. So it's kind of like I'll model, like, even though I didn't get to record them, it's kind of like the same processing that, you know, I would do if somebody sends me a song with no processing on it, just so I'm in a good starting place. I'm already catching my vibe, kind of already got a little character, a little juice, a little swag to it, and it's all about touching it up. Okay, so that's pretty much all that I got here for today. I just want to say I appreciate y'all, my YouTube family. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Drop a comment down below if you learned something, if you appreciate it. So we went over a lot of stuff today. You know, the components inside the Neve. We talked about how you could use it as a parallel distorter. We talked about how you could use it as kind of like an exciter to hear your effects a little bit better. And we talked about how you could track with it in console, and really just the psychology of an artist, helping the artist catch a vibe and really feeling good so they could give you a better take, you know. So I just want to say thanks a lot for being a great part of my YouTube family. Appreciate y'all now. Peace.